Hi, I'm John Delano, political editor, KDK TV. And our very special guest is County Councilman Sam DeMarco, who in this instance wears the hat as the chair of the Allegheny County Republican Party. Councilman, always good to be with you. Thank you, sir, for being with me.
Thanks for having me, John. It's always a pleasure.
So over the weekend, as you know, Senator Pat Toomey, a Republican, voted to convict Donald Trump of high crimes and misdemeanors. On a personal level, what was your reaction to that? And then what are you hearing from Republicans in Allegheny County?
I think, to look at this right now, what I'm hearing from Republicans is there are a lot of folks that are angry. There are a lot of folks that are upset. They're calling for his censure or, worse, in some cases, some folks are calling for him to resign. But I think that these folks are losing sight of the fact that the president was acquitted on Saturday. That while I think there's widespread agreement amongst Republicans that this was a sham impeachment, I think they need to understand that Democrats went into this with two objectives. The first objective was to ensure or to try to prevent Donald Trump from ever running for office again. On that, they failed. Their second objective is to create a split and cause chaos within the Republican Party. Whether they succeed there, that's up to us. Okay. What they're hoping to do is to create what's taking place today is having Republicans fighting amongst each other, folks attacking the senator for what may have been a conscience-driven vote that he took because they don't agree with it, not realizing that what you're doing is you're telling other Republicans who are in our big tent that their thinking may not be acceptable. John, we're a big tent. Politics is a numbers game. You win through addition, not subtraction. So the more folks we can bring into our tent and take to the polls enhances our chances of winning and protecting President Trump's legacy.
Well, you have a very interesting perspective on this because you represent a county that has many Republicans who voted for Joe Biden, but then voted for all your other Republican candidates. You actually had quite a good election night in Allegheny County and in Pennsylvania for Republicans. So, I mean, are you suggesting that there's an effort that this is part of a Democratic Party effort to split Republicans against each other?
Oh, absolutely. They're trying to take and change our focus from where it should be, which is right now on the Biden administration and what they're doing with the signing of all of these executive orders. And just this morning, I read that he's just withdrawn from 65 Trump executive orders, many of which had to do with national security and immigration. Yesterday, he took and proposed gun control legislation that they're going to try to put up, which would infringe on our Second Amendment rights. They want to distract from Governor Wolf's Pennsylvania disaster and failure to provide a vaccination plan to be able to get vaccines from the point of delivery once the federal government gives them to the state to the counties where they can then be put into people's arms. And so, every minute that we spend sitting there and fighting amongst each other and going back and trying to take and censor somebody who has already announced they're retiring and they're leaving is, I think, a moment where we're not focused on the future. It's what we need to do, which is to win these judicial races in 2021 and take back the House and the Senate in 2022.
Let me ask you, if I may, Sam, then about what Allegheny County is going to do. Do you plan to have a censure resolution? Are there calls to do that? Is that something that, it sounds to me like you're saying it's a waste of time and you need to focus on this year's elections and next year's elections. But will the Allegheny County Republican Party censure Pat Toomey?
Well, at this point, I don't know. As the chairman of the Republican Party of Allegheny County, I have to be respectful of our members because I speak for them. But we are a big county. We have more members in our committee than the state committee does in theirs. So it takes a while to reach out to these folks, to have conversations and see where they want to go. There are certainly folks that want to see a censure resolution made. There are folks that want to see just a very strongly worded statement, and what I want to do as the representative for these folks is to get their opinions before I run out in front, and make a decision or say something that affects them without their input.
Fair enough. Although I think your view on this is fairly clear. You've made it, as you always do, on lots of issues. Do you think the state party should take action? Or maybe better question is, what are you hearing about the state party? Are they likely to take some action further than what they've done?
Well, the state party put out an email on Saturday saying that they could potentially be calling for a special meeting to consider the actions of what took place on Saturday and things like that, and what we might do about it. Then there was also a statement, strongly worded statement, that was put out that said, hey, they disagree with Senator Toomey's vote, as I do. I believe that the impeachment was unconstitutional, and on that basis alone, should not have been, he should have voted no on. I mean, Chief Justice Roberts, his actions by choosing not even to appear, showed that it wasn't something to be taken seriously. But that being said, again, we're a Big Tent party. I believe there's room under this tent for people that don't always agree, that may agree on 70 or 80% of these things. And these are the folks that I want to bring into the party, because that's how we grow and that's how we win in 2021 and 2022.
Well, let me ask you about that, because I think a lot of folks would say that Senator Toomey has been a pretty strong supporter of the policies of President Trump. And I can tell you that he's a pretty conservative Republican generally on issues. Is there a litmus test, a requirement that you be 100% in order to be a Republican? Or if you're not 100%, does that make you what they call a rhino, a Republican in name only?
Well, see, I think that's one of the things that I fear, and that I'm afraid that our party, some folks would like to move to, sort of a group think philosophy where you have to be with them 100% of the time, or you're spineless or a rhino and not a real Republican. But I would say that Senator Toomey has been one of the most conservative senators we've had in decades here in Pennsylvania, if not ever. He was instrumental in passing President Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That wouldn't have passed probably if it wouldn't have been for Senator Toomey. He was a strong supporter of all the president's judicial nominations and getting the judges through to the Supreme Court and our circuit courts. So Senator Toomey has been a strong supporter of the presidents in the past. So it's not always an either or situation. And that does concern me, that we have some in our party, that I fear want to be like, the progressives, the Democrats, with the groupthink, and that you have to believe this exactly. And if you differ whatsoever, then you're not part of us. And that's a dangerous road to go down.
Yeah. And then finally, Mr. DeMarco or Councilman, let me just ask you about 2021. Do you think this is going to be a good year for Republicans?
I think it has the potential to be a very good year for Republicans, but it requires us to come out to vote. And we saw in 2017, the year after President Trump had been elected, how Democrats ran to the polls, and had good results in their municipal elections. We need to be able to do the same, okay? Folks that are unhappy with what happened in November, for any way, shape, or form, they need to come out here in 2021 to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we saw with the actions of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court this past election cycle how important judicial races are. And that's why we need to go to the polls to elect Republicans here in November.
Well, County Councilman Sam DeMarco, the chair of the Republican Party of Allegheny County, thank you, sir, very much for spending time with me today. I really do appreciate it.
John, thank you for having me. Have a great day.
And our very special guest is Bill Bretz, who is the chair of the Westmoreland County Republican Party. Mr. Bretz, thank you, sir, very much for being with me. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, John.
So as you know, over the weekend, Senator Pat Toomey, Republican, was one of the 7 U.S. senators to vote to convict Donald Trump of high crimes and misdemeanors. Some of the counties have issued censure resolutions. Westmoreland County has not yet. Can you give us some sense? Have you had a reaction? in the county to what Senator Toomey did? And are you looking to do anything, or is it just too late and a waste of time? What do you think?
No, we're definitely prepared to take action here. We've been watching the situation for some time, and the feedback from our constituents and from my committee members are strongly in favor of taking an action to state our displeasure with his votes formally. So that's something we are having a formal meeting here later this evening to vote on a resolution that we've drafted.
And what does this resolution say?
Well, it simply cites that the merits of the case weren't there, and that we strongly disapprove of his action both to hear the case and his subsequent vote to convict on these charges.
Some would say that Senator Toomey generally has been a very strong supporter of President Trump along the way, at least when it comes to issues. And I've heard some folks say, given that he's been a strong supporter on this one issue, aren't you allowed to deviate as a Republican? What's your response to that?
Well, I think that Pennsylvania is a pretty diverse state there, and on the whole, Pat Toomey has represented us as well. And we haven't always agreed with every vote that he's ever taken, but you can't expect that from any elected official. But this is a matter of magnitude beyond a simple up or down vote on some trade policy or something. This is the impeachment of a United States president who served our country with distinction on a matter that frankly doesn't have any merit here. And we as the Republican committee and the constituents of Westmoreland County that worked so hard to put him in office again feel that he's not representing us on this matter with that vote. And so we want to loudly state that we don't favor that, and this is the only means that we have to do that.
You feel let down by Senator Toomey?
On this matter, absolutely.
I've had others say to me that the senator wasn't elected to exercise his own conscience on issues. Is that your view? What is the role of a U.S. senator on something like this?
Well, I do think that the senator has to use his discretion as he interprets the will of the people, but ultimately all of these folks are elected to be our representatives, and in this matter, I don't feel that he has a very good feel for where the electorate stands in Pennsylvania, and perhaps he's allowed his personal feelings toward the president or this matter influence his vote in a manner that isn't favorable to us.
Let me ask you this, Bill. Do you think there should be a state party condemnation? And what do you know about the status of that from the state Republican Party?
Well, the logistics of putting together something on a statewide basis are a little different than they are to scramble the team of the county. I know a number of individual counties have already taken votes in favor of censuring the senator. So my understanding is that the state party is looking to put together a meeting and a resolution for consideration as well. Again, that's a logistical matter that is of a magnitude that is bigger than what we have. So the timeline may be several days into the future, but I know it's a matter under consideration.
Do you support that effort?
If I'm supporting one in Westmoreland County, I would certainly support one statewide.
Do you think this is divisive in the Republican Party? Because as you know, in some counties, not necessarily Westmoreland, but in some counties, there were plenty of Republicans who voted for Joe Biden and then voted for all the Republicans down the line. And I'm thinking specifically of Allegheny County that we know of. Do you think that this splits Republicans or unites them, this kind of censuring action?
I feel that, at least in Westmoreland County, this is a galvanizing issue. There are definitely folks that are discouraged by the results of the presidential election and some of the things that led up to that, with changes particularly to the voting statutes here in Pennsylvania at the last minute by the governor, the secretary of state, and confirmed by the judiciary of Pennsylvania, that really opened the door for a Biden victory in the state. So I feel this is a galvanizing issue here, and this is something we can all rally around. And those folks that may have dissent toward the Republican Party, at least the local party, can see that we're all on the same team here. So I do think this is a good matter for us to pursue.
A couple of quick last questions. Were you involved in conversations that Senator Toomey had with party leaders either last month or earlier this month, in which he basically, some say, was reassuring that he was not going to vote to convict President Trump?
I am not privy to those. I know that our delegation to the state committee had inquired about the nature of those conversations, and we haven't gotten that feedback yet as to what the nature of those were. But no matter what that discussion was, his decision was to vote to convict there, and we are appalled by that.
Appalled.
That's a strong enough word, I think.
Yeah, it's a strong word. There's no doubt about it. Then finally, do you think Senator Toomey should resign?
I'm not of a mind to call for that. I think simply signaling our strong displeasure with this vote, and we would like to have him give an account of that. I know he's released a public press statement on the merit of that, but that's a lot different than talking directly to this group of people. But as we said earlier, on the whole, he has served us well as a senator representing the Commonwealth. But this is a matter that we just need to speak out against as formally as we can.
Well, Bill Bretz, the chair of the Westmoreland County Republican Party, thank you, sir, very much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to get the word out on the actions of our committee. Thank you.
Our very special guest is Dave Ball, who is the chair of the Washington County Republican Party. Mr. Ball, thank you, sir, very much for being with me. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here, John.
So your Republican Party in Washington County took action over the weekend after Senator Toomey cast a vote for the conviction of Donald Trump in this impeachment issue. Can you tell us what exactly your committee did?
Well, actually, we took action before he voted for the impeachment. We took action the week before, but we passed a resolution censuring Senator Toomey for basically not representing the interests of the Republicans in Washington County. Our feeling was very strong in this county when he, first of all, voted to allow the impeachment process to go forward, and then secondly, when he voted that it was a constitutional process. We received many phone calls and texts and emails from members of our party. Many of them very vocal, many of them very expressive, let me say. What are you doing? Meaning us personally. Why do we allow this to happen? What are we going to do to straighten this out? What are we going to do to Senator Toomey? People were very, very unhappy, and they expressed their desire that we take action against Senator Toomey. Now, obviously, there's only so many things that you can do as a county party. We can't. Pennsylvania does not have a recall provision in its law, so you can't get a recall provision in process. So, we talked about the things that could be done, and really the most stringent action that we can take is a motion of censure. And a motion of censure really is a resolution where we express very strong disapproval of actions that have been taken, and that's what we chose to do.
Do you think Senator Toomey should resign?
Even if we did, I don't think he would. So he has 2 more years on his term. He has said that he is going to not run again. I'm sure that there are people that do support his action, but here's the fact of the matter, John. There are 3.5 million people in this state voted for President Trump. 72,000 of them in Washington County voted for President Trump. The feeling is very strong in support of President Trump. 4 years ago, when we voted for Pat Toomey, we sent him to Washington to represent our interests. He was our representative in Washington. We did not send him there to vote his conscience. We did not send him there to do the right thing or whatever he said he was doing. We sent him there to represent us. And we feel very strongly that he did not represent us. So therefore, we have this motion of censure, which is exactly what it says it is. It expresses our very strong displeasure with his actions. Now, should he resign? We certainly wouldn't be unhappy if he did, but then the question is, so what happens after that? I don't believe it solves anything. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, the probability is that the governor would appoint a Democrat until there's a special election, which would be held. So let me ask you this question, if I may, Dave. My understanding is that you actually had conversations, or you heard Senator Toomey speak to fellow Republican leaders, and that he made statements that may be contrary to the actions he took. Can you explain that a little bit to us?
Well, he spoke to the Republican leadership of the state and was questioned on what he would do. This was after he had voted to allow the trial to proceed, and he made representations that he would not,
He would not vote to convict? I mean, what exactly did he say?
Politicians are very good at not saying things sometimes. He was asked very directly. He said, I understand there's a lot of pressure for a motion of censure for me, and I don't think that'd be a good idea for me, and I don't think it'd be a good idea for the party. And I think that we'll see how this plays out. I'm not inclined to to do this. I'm not inclined to do that, and basically gave the impression that he would probably not be not be in favor of calling it a constitutional thing to allow the trial to go on, and if it did, would probably not be inclined to find the president guilty. And so, given that, we said, okay, let's see what happens. We'll give them a chance to see what goes on. But the only reason that happens, there were people with pitchforks and torches, who would love to have seen the party take action at that point.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you it this way: do you personally feel that Pat Toomey lied to you?
I don't think he was straightforward with us. I don't think that he had an opportunity to say distinctly yes or no. He had the opportunity to say, yes, I will do this, or no, I won't do that. I don't believe that he was forthcoming with an answer.
He left you with the impression that he was going to support President Trump.
That was the impression. He said many times, and this was only a 5-minute discussion, but he said several times that I have always supported the president. I voted for his trade, everything with his trade bills. I've supported him for 4 years. And, that was an impression that he would continue to support the president.
Right. 2 quick last questions. Let me ask you, sir, do you think the state party should take action against the senator?
I believe that the state party will probably have no option but to take some form of action.
What would that be? Another censure statewide?
I don't know. That's what has to be discussed. There will probably be more than one opinion as to what should be done. But here's the thing: there will be a desire to punish, but on the other hand, I'm not sure what form of punishment would be meaningful at this point in time. I think it's more important that we bring the party back together. I think we have some important elections coming up. We have some judges to elect. I'm not sure that tearing the party apart with punishing Toomey for something would be to our best interest to get the judges elected and some of the other elections that we are facing going forward. I think right now it probably would serve the party's interest best to focus our energy on winning elections and moving forward. Pat Toomey's finished. His political career is done. I don't know what he intends to do moving forward, but he does not have a political future in Pennsylvania, and his legacy is going to bear the marks of what he's done here. So, if that's punishment, that's punishment.
Well, that sort of leads into my final question. I did speak to some other Republican leaders, and one of whom basically said, why bother with the censure stuff? It's a waste of time. We should be looking. It divides the Republican Party. We should just move ahead. Obviously, you chose to censure, but now you want to move ahead.
Well, we chose censuring him here locally because that was meaningful at the time. It was a message that don't consider voting for to find the president guilty, but he did. So what else can be done? There's nothing else that he's going to do with regard to the president and the impeachment. So that as an effort, that's done. Whatever he's going to do is done. There's nothing. Now if we try and do something else, what else can you do? We could censure him again as a state. So okay, we've already determined he's a bad guy. So what else do we do?
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you again, Dave Ball, who is the chair of the Republican Party of Washington County. Thank you, sir, very much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.